Let me start by really saying good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any gentlemen watching. And let me say that I'm really honored this afternoon to address the members of the Female Lawyers Network, Uganda, from wherever you may be watching. I gather there may be people attending the session beyond Uganda, and if so, you are equally welcome to this webinar. I must say, though, that when the organizers asked me to speak on the chosen topic, I wondered what I would say that would be relevant across the wide spectrum of professionals of all ages, that is the FLN. And of course, that includes law students, graduates, lawyers in the private sector, public service, judiciary, government attorneys, CEOs, politicians, etc. However, I believe that as female lawyers pursuing professional excellence, there are certain values and goals that cut across this wide spectrum. So it is my hope that each of you will find something beneficial in what I have to share this afternoon. Let me start with a few words about my personal journey and to share a little bit about my life growing up, because some aspects of that life and upbringing have contributed to shaping who I am today. I was born in a sleepy little village in Entebbe called Chiwafu, where nothing exciting ever happens. I was born in a family of 4 siblings, which was unusually conservative in those days, as many Baganda families had anything between 6 to 15 children. My father, a civil servant, spoiled myself and my siblings rotten. But he also inculcated in us lifelong values such as honesty, integrity, hard work, punctuality, and respect for other people. But what we lacked in discipline from him, my mother more than made up in her conservative and regimented style of upbringing. Her philosophy was, spare the rod and spoil the child. My mother, a full-time housewife and homemaker, was the kind of mom who would send away the house help as soon as we were home for the holidays, for the rest of the holidays, so that there we would be doing all the chores around the house. Incidentally, we the children were never allowed to address the house help as omukozi or house girl. We were to always address the help as auntie or nyabo, which means madam. I would have you know that I was the most outspoken amongst my siblings, and my early advocacy skills often got me into serious trouble. And no, I wasn't the eldest sibling. I was the second born. But those of you who are also second born know the competitive syndrome from which we suffer as second borns. Anyway, I vividly remember this one morning when it was my turn to do the dishes at home. I decided that I had had enough of the domestic servitude. So my 9-year-old petulant self ran to my father, demanding that he free us, my siblings and I, from our stepmother in disguise, and that he should take us away to live with our real mother. Unbeknown to me, Mom was within earshot and heard the whole conversation. I leave you to imagine what followed. Suffice it to say that I did the dishes for the rest of that month, and that was the lighter part of my punishment. But my mother had also a positive side to her. She installed in us the philosophy that we could become anything that we wanted to be in life, provided we worked hard at it. We never had much growing up, but my parents had the foresight to prioritize our education. They sacrificed everything and ensured that they availed us the opportunity to go to the best schools in the country. Each of us each of those institutions had a particular impact on us. In my formative years, I went to a multiracial primary school that introduced me to children and teachers of other races. I remember vividly struggling to understand why the African and Asian students were in one class, while the British American and Canadian students were in a separate class. This was, of course, a subtle form of apartheid going on pre-independence. The classes were integrated on the eve of independence, and I still didn't understand that either. I then went on to attend an all-girls secondary school that focused not just on academic excellence, but equipped us for our future roles as mothers and housewives. And for my higher education, I attended a co-educational school, that's a mixed school, that exposed me to male colleagues and prepared me for a competitive world in which I understood male and female to be equal. For the rest of my education, which you can gather from my CV on Google, the values and lessons I acquired during my formative years remained pivotal. And so looking back, the individual that I am today is largely a product of my doting father, my loving but disciplinarian mom, and the educational institutions that I went to. Now I come to sharing something about my family and how I've balanced career and family. I got married and had my 2 daughters after I had started my legal career. I got married at the age of 26. I fully appreciate the difficulty that budding female professionals face in finding the right balance between family and career, especially nowadays when the family needs both incomes and good house help is expensive and difficult to find. The choice is often harder for professional women who, on top of figuring out their career trajectory, need to carefully plan how many children they want to have and by when. These choices often entail many sacrifices, especially at the beginning of one's career. Juggling a career and family can be quite daunting. Oftentimes, we bite off more than we can chew. Thank God for good house help if you can find it, and for all those machines that help ease our chores in the kitchen. Let me tell you that it is possible to excel at work and also to effectively take care of your family. But the secret lies in learning to prioritize. Personally, my family has always come first and my job second. When I come home from the courtroom, I kick off my heels, grab my apron, and I'm in the kitchen trying to prepare a delicious and balanced meal from my family. Of course, where I currently live, house help is simply out of the question. So I prepare and freeze various dishes over the weekend. We then, of course, feast on these dishes throughout the week. Throughout my 41-year career, I decided from the start, and this may come maybe as a bit of advice to those of you starting out early and starting with a young family. I decided from the start that as long as my children were still young, and by young, I mean pre-university, I would be available for them full-time and would not accept any work that would take me away from them for long periods. I do not regret the investment I made. I started accepting work abroad long after each one of them had attained their first degree. Our children need their mothers during these crucial years. And speaking of juggling career and home, we women are born natural multitaskers. However, I'm also old school and believe that a mother and wife should not leave the cleanliness and organization of her home or the feeding and nurturing of her family to the house help. That is why they are called house help and not substitutes. I personally enjoy living in a clean house, even if I have to do the cleaning myself. I also enjoy a good home-cooked meal. Successful multitasking is a question of being organized. Simple things like planning your weekly menu in advance, chopping up and freezing your veggies for the week, pre-cooking and freezing certain foods, getting the children and husband to clean up after themselves are all tips that help you cope with the challenges of multitasking. So, how do you choose a career path after graduation from university as a lawyer? Every successful career begins with a decision of what you want to be or to do with your life, goals that you want to achieve within the short term, midterm, and long term. Without a vision of what you wish to achieve, you will easily drift from job to job without leaving any meaningful impact behind. Of course, not to mention the negative impression that job trotting leaves on your CV. It might come as a surprise to many of you, but my choice to study law was purely accidental or coincidental. I cannot point to any particular role model that inspired me, nor can I say that my choice to become a lawyer was informed by any profound career guidance, either from anyone or from home. I simply did not have that privilege. My decision to study law at Makerere was a last choice I made after ruling out everything else that did not appeal to me. Of course, once I had got the hang of things in law school, I decided to enjoy the course, and following my mom's advice, I worked hard at it and resolved to make something of myself. At college, I was not a genius. I was not above average, but I was hardworking, ambitious, and determined to succeed. And that accounts for where I am today. So there's hope for the majority of you yet. Surprisingly, many of my former classmates at university who seemed like geniuses at the time either aren't doing so well career-wise or simply did not make it in life at all. C'est la vie. Now, once you have a job opening, you need to make the most of the opportunities and resources available at that job, taking time to gather all the skills, knowledge, experience that the position offers. There is no such thing as useless skills or experience, I have discovered. I've discovered that every skill I have gathered along the way has somehow proven useful in my next job, and none of them has ever gone to waste. Personally, I have never been driven by monetary considerations in choosing a job, although a fat check can be a worthwhile incentive. There are other considerations that are equally important, such as job satisfaction, exposure, opportunities for further training and career enhancement, and the availability of niche opportunities. You also need to have a measure of consistency at any given workplace. What do I mean? Gathering skills and experience often entails spending several years at the same job. There is a saying that a rolling stone gathers no moss. I consider a minimum of 3 to 5 years in the same line of work critical to gaining meaningful skills and experience. Also remember that there is no perfect working environment or perfect boss. Many young professionals are quick to throw in the towel the minute they encounter the first challenge or difficulty at work, and then they're busy looking for what they think will be a better job, only to repeat the cycle at their next job. What you need to do is to focus on your long-term goals and not to fall in such a trap. Now, I do not suggest that you stagnate. Personally, I have never shied away from looking for opportunities to enhance my career. I have learned that while I'm required to do my current job to the best of my ability, I can also look out for opportunities for further training and specialization and for upward mobility within and outside the current organization. I have learned to seize opportunities and to take advantage of the right timing. As you polish your skills and consolidate your experience in a given job, keep your eyes open for opportunities for upward mobility. Always look for opportunities to improve your qualifications. Today, there are so many opportunities for one to improve oneself, ranging from evening classes to online courses, webinars such as this, podcasts, etc. If you ever hope to have a competitive edge or even a chance at an international job, a first degree in law is no longer sufficient. You'll not be competitive if all you have is your first degree and your your first bar qualification. You'll be lucky to. I'm not saying that you can't. But you should consider supplementing your bachelor's degree with a master's degree or an MBA or some other similar higher qualification. If you want to practice law in a different jurisdiction, you may consider taking another bar qualification, for example, the New York bar or the UK bar or any other bar of a jurisdiction that you think you want to practice in. Remember always that you need not be an intellectual genius to succeed in this life. You simply have to work hard and to diligently pursue your dream with unwavering courage, fortitude, steadfastness, and tenacity. So why do we need to pursue excellence and professionalism? This is the topic I was asked in particular to speak about. As lawyers, we ought to be mindful of the way we interact with our clients, colleagues, and the outside world, simply because law is a noble profession. Workplace etiquette is important not only because it brings out the best in us, but it also ensures that our presence won't be a burden on anyone else's work experience. So how do you position yourself for excellence and professionalism in the workplace? The short answer is that you should first understand what professionalism is, and then work towards attaining excellence in your performance. Professionalism is not the job that you do, rather, it is how you do the job. Some workplaces or positions require compliance with particular rules or codes of conduct or ethics, and often some of these rules are not explicit or written down. I'm sure you're all familiar with the lawyer's code of conduct for your local bar. If you are a judicial officer, and I understand there are quite a number of judicial officers attending, you're familiar with the Code of Judicial Ethics that enjoins you to uphold the values of fairness, independence, and impartiality. But there's more to professionalism than just abiding by a set of rules. Professionalism is a tool that allows you to fulfill your role to the best of your ability and to maintain high standards of performance. Let me share with you a few characteristics that are, in my view, critical to attaining professional excellence. First, competence. Competence is the first characteristic for attaining professional excellence. In order to get the job done and done well, you need to ensure that your abilities and qualifications match the requirements of your job. Usually this is decided at the job interview, but even when you have clinched the position, do not settle for mediocrity. In many international organizations, they have what they call annual performance appraisals, where an employee is graded according to their performance, which in turn is measured against set goals. Competence also means that you are confident at your job and are not afraid to take on challenges. Do not let your knowledge and skills get outdated. Strive to build your expertise and stay abreast with current trends within your industry. As I said earlier, use the available training opportunities to sharpen your knowledge in your chosen field, and do not feel shy to learn from other colleagues within the organization. The second characteristic is conscientiousness. This is a long word that entails being reliable, being punctual, being industrious or hardworking, being organized, and holding yourself accountable in your job. Yourself accountable. So you need to regularly set goals or deadlines for yourself, and you need to periodically audit your performance. Now, these are things that I'm saying, not just for the sake of saying, but these are things that only serious professionals will do. If you're lazy and you're simply doing a job because that's your job, you probably will find this quite boring. But you need to regularly set goals or deadlines for yourself and periodically audit your performance. At the end of the day, of the week, or the month, ask yourself whether you have been as productive as you could have been. Work on those aspects of your life that impede your productivity. Resolve to honor your commitments and to learn from your mistakes. By the way, do not confuse conscientiousness with working longer hours than everybody else or obsessing about details, which is perfectionism. As one of my colleagues often says here, perfect is the enemy of good. As a conscientious practitioner, you must arrive on time for work, meetings, and work-related events, and you must adequately prepare before going to court. Be punctual in court, even when the judge is late. If you want to make your mark or to have a professional edge, avoid mediocrity and procrastination. These are enemies of professionalism. And if you set out to do a job, do it well or don't do it at all. The trouble with today's generation, especially in Uganda, is that we have stopped pursuing excellence and are satisfied with doing the bare minimum that can keep us in the job. You can see mediocrity in our education system, our civil service, our health services, our universities, and other institutions in government. Mediocrity manifests itself in sloppy work, lateness for work, taking shortcuts, including corruption, etc. In my experience working both nationally and internationally, I have found that respect does not come cheap and must be earned. And oftentimes, if you make a mistake as an African woman, it reflects on your entire race or gender. You are no doubt familiar with the saying that Africans don't keep time. Well, here, if I come late to work or I come unprepared for the court, my non-African peers may not say it to my face, but you can see it in their eyes. Your whole race gets blamed for your indiscretions. Throughout my career, I have purposed to be punctual for work, to adequately prepare before going into court, and to ensure that my output is up to standard. And by the way, ladies, don't forget to look your best while you're at it. It helps boost your own morale. The third characteristic I want to share is integrity. I was taught that one's name is one's greatest possession. I don't know if you believe that. At first, I did not understand the weight of that statement, but over time, I have come to appreciate the value of integrity. Integrity entails honesty, moral uprightness, dependability, and being a person of your word. It is no secret that in our country today, integrity is a commodity in very short supply. And sadly, our young people have very few role models to emulate. I've learned that integrity is best role modeled, especially if you occupy a senior position. To your subordinates, your actions will speak louder than your words, always. I also strongly believe that integrity is one value that starts right in the home. And if we bring up our children to be truthful, morally upright, and dependable from an early age, they will not depart from it when they grow up. As parents, we are the greatest role models that our children will ever see. In the legal profession, we often are accused of dishonesty, and probably rightly so. It is possible to carry out your profession in an honest and clean way that honors God and your profession. Be honest in all your business dealings, maintain confidentiality when required, and adhere to all workplace policies and procedures, even when no one is watching. That is what integrity is. Also be true to your word and do not compromise your values, even if it means swimming against the tide, which is usually quite uncomfortable. Do not do something simply because, well, everybody does it, or you do it in a certain way just because that's the way everybody does it. Professional integrity means honesty to oneself and to others, and it means that your word and actions are aligned to each other. Integrity also means that you do not abuse or misuse the resources of the organization for which you work. That includes time, stationery, vehicles, your secretaries, support staff, research assistants, etc., for personal or unintended purposes. I must mention that our use of the mobile phone and of social media these days has the potential to get out of hand. Please keep personal internet surfing to a minimum during working hours. Always be careful about what you post on social media pages or on your walls, as it is likely to have serious consequences for you, either your present or future job. Never post a comment negatively about your boss or your job or your co-workers, as this will most certainly jeopardize your job and theirs. For judicial officers, integrity entails transparency and accountabilities in all areas of our lives. There's a saying that, like Caesar's wife, we are required to be above reproach inside and outside the courtroom. A judge's unethical behavior in private life has the potential to bring the entire judicial institution into disrepute. I have also learned that as a professional, the friends you keep can make or break you. It has been said that you are the average of the 5 friends whose company you keep. If your close friends are not focused or are not people of integrity, don't expect to turn out differently. The older I have grown, the fewer friends I keep, and I am okay with that. The next characteristic I want to share is resilience. This is part of professionalism. As I said earlier, that there is no such thing as a perfect job. And we're all constantly meeting challenges of one sort or another at the workplace, even here where I am. A true professional never runs away from challenging situations, but sees them as opportunities for growth. And so you too should learn to turn those millstones into stepping stones. Some challenges may come in the form of unacceptable behavior from a colleague. For example, such things as discrimination or harassment or bullying. I find that in such cases, the best you can do for yourself is to stand up to the culprit and politely but firmly let them know that their behavior is unacceptable and that you are not prepared to compromise your values or your job. Of course, if the misconduct persists, you can involve a third party to assist. And always a true professional remains in control of their emotions, even under pressure. Another important aspect of resilience is risk-taking. In pursuance of your goals, do not be afraid to take risks and to believe in yourself. The world has invested a lot in making rules that help men or even white people advance in the workplace, while keeping women and people of color backwards, always at the bottom of the pile. As women and as Black women, we have been socialized to take a backseat. Women often do not speak up unless called upon to do so, or expect a male colleague to lend a helping hand before we can believe in ourselves. And often this will not happen. If the rules don't work for you, change them. Don't accept to be treated as anything but equal. In my career, one of the characteristics that has helped me to progress is that I'm not afraid to apply for jobs in new areas that perhaps other people would be afraid to take the risk. I'm also not discouraged by the fact that I have no one to hold my hand. I have no godfathers in applying for these jobs. My philosophy always, and I keep saying this to myself, what is the worst that can happen? They will only say no. That is the worst that can happen. And what won't kill me will make me stronger. This is what I always say to myself. That is the attitude that got me into the Commonwealth Secretariat, the Ugandan Judiciary, the Special Court for Sierra Leone, and the United Nations. So in all these jobs, I've not had a godfather. No one has held my hand, but I've not been afraid to take risks to go for these jobs. I think probably the last characteristic in this part of my presentation would be team spirit. Most professionals work as part of a team. Most of us do. If you work for an international organization, this requires you to appreciate the multicultural environment within which you work and to treat everyone with respect, regardless of their differences. Take time to know your colleagues and to understand their culture. Avoid stereotypical behavior. The general work culture is bound to change from company to company, organization to organization. And so it's important that you learn as much as you can about the cultural norms whenever you start a new post or position. For example, in some offices, it is acceptable to simply communicate by email amongst colleagues, while in others, more formal methods of communication may be preferable. Team spirit also entails a measure of humility. But like integrity, humility is a virtue best learned from home. It simply means learning to keep your success in perspective. Remember, you're neither the first nor the last to reach where you are. Get in the habit of seeing things from other people's point of view, as this will enable you to empathize with them and offer them better support. Also learn to accept constructive criticism. This is part of the team spirit. I would also like to pose a challenge to you. As women lawyers and as African women, let us always make a point of extending a helping hand to our sisters that may be trying to climb the ladder after us. This may not come naturally, as most women tend to feel threatened by other women in the same workplace. But as professionals, it is incumbent upon us to help one another and to lift one another up, especially because the odds are usually stacked against us. In my career, I owe a debt of gratitude to a few individuals, men and women, who have lent me a helping hand when I most needed it. Now, how do you develop a competitive edge in the job market? Remember, when you're in the same role at the same organization for a long time, it is inevitable to get complacent. But you cannot get too comfortable, no matter how well you may be performing, because every day the job market is evolving and younger, brighter legal minds are entering the fray. It is critical that you focus on refreshing your skills and strengthening your networks in order to remain relevant, and to remember that gaining a competitive advantage in your chosen field is a continuous journey. For those of you that are not satisfied with remaining in your comfort zone, here are some tips on how to retain a competitive job in the job market, a competitive edge in the job market. Number one, you need to prioritize your professional development. Whatever the nature of the organization that you work for, continued professional development is critical. If you are fortunate enough to work in an organization that offers opportunity for professional development, please take full advantage of those opportunities. Start by assessing your current strengths, skills, and weaknesses with your supervisor, if possible, and identify any gaps based on how you want to progress in your career and work towards improving those areas. Be willing to invest time and money into your professional development. Read books, listen to podcasts, attend classes, workshops, and webinars such as this one. Opportunities for professional development may include training in new technologies that your organization may have introduced, taking training courses that can enhance or better your current skills, acquiring additional skills or qualifications that may equip you to take on a leadership role within the organization. Where possible, consult a recruitment consultant to advise you on what skills are hot on the market. Secondly, develop your own brand or niche. This is how to develop, a competitive edge. Develop your own brand on niche. What do I mean? Where you wind up career-wise and how soon you get there very often depends on how well you build your personal brand. Well, just as a strong brand can influence the marketability of a product, in the workplace, branding can win you a job interview, a promotion, and even open new doors. Branding starts with assessing how you would wish to be perceived professionally, the values or personal traits and characteristics that make you stand out. And of course, surrounding yourself with appropriate role models. I'll give you an example. I've found that introverts or quiet people are often overlooked for leadership positions, while assertive ones easily win such positions. That's an example of branding. But of course, there are many other examples that you probably can think about. So the third tip is you need to be flexible and adaptable within your career. If you want to advance, you must be willing to look at new roles and to perform new or additional duties. This can be scary sometimes, but a good place to begin is to believe in yourself that you have what it takes. I must also mention that when applying for a new job that requires adaptation, learn to adapt your CV. so that it is relevant to the targeted job description. It is never a good idea to recycle the same CV for different jobs. A fourth tip is that you should join a professional network of peers. Throughout your career, it's advisable to build what we call social capital. That is, a network of peers capable of offering you professional support when you need it. An old friend or colleague may be the one to tip you about a new position opening that you didn't know about in the organization, or may even put in a good word for you where it matters. Nowadays, popular websites like LinkedIn can also provide you with the professional visibility of your brand and help you meet like-minded professionals. Networking can also help you access learning opportunities, training conferences, and online educational platforms. Lastly, I want to say a few words about the prospects available for women in law internationally, that is, international opportunities. How does a female lawyer plan and strategically prepare for service in international spaces? The thought of leaving the comfort of a legal practice at home for one abroad or internationally is often daunting. Most international jobs are widely advertised in order to attract the best candidates from a wide variety of applicants. But also they are fixed term contract jobs. So if, for instance, you've been in the civil service and you are basically looking at a long-term or permanent tenure, the international civil service will be different in that you're going in for a specified amount of time or years. If you're interested in serving in an international organization, I advise you to keep searching for job openings on the internet, particularly on the websites of the international organizations that you may be looking to join. I would not advise you to depend on a friend already working at the organization to say that they'll put in a word for you. Whilst that might ultimately help behind the scenes, most international organizations usually observe strict, transparent recruitment procedures that you cannot bypass, no matter who you know in that organization. It takes the kind of reckless courage that I referred to earlier for one to take the plunge and to apply for an international job. What you must keep in mind is that there are many other candidates from other countries that may also have applied for the same job. You need to carefully consider the job description and the required qualifications, and then sit down to carefully write your CV or fill out any forms to fit that job description. When filling out forms, be sure to complete all the parts necessary. I've had the experience here of considering people for employment in this court, either as interns or as legal assistants. And I cannot tell you the number of forms that are incompletely filled. Because when you're considering thousands of forms and you come across one which is incomplete, you are just going to skip over that. Nowadays, many international organizations require an applicant to write an essay, or what is referred to as a motivation, containing the reasons why you are interested in a particular job. And you shouldn't take this lightly. You must motivate the people on the other side to believe that you are the best person for the job. Others may require you to be bilingual. This may be one of the requirements. So if you know you are not bilingual, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Also remember to include a couple of impressive references. Maybe your former professor at the university, or a judge, or someone of renowned stature. And of course, this may or may not include your current or past employers. But ensure as far as possible that at least you meet all the criteria required for a given job before you apply. These days, many international organizations will conduct initial interviews by telephone, and only after shortlisting successful candidates will they have in-person or written interviews. Sadly, it is also not uncommon for some international organizations to advertise a job while informally reserving the position for an internal candidate. And of course, you may not know this, but that should not discourage you from applying. Some organizations are more notorious than others in this regard. Notwithstanding the above challenges, I still encourage you that if you identify a job opening internationally that you think you qualify for, go for it and give it your best shot. So I'm going to conclude my presentation, and then we'll go into a Q&A. But I cannot conclude without sharing a critical aspect of my personal life that has contributed to my success. Over the years, I have learned to honor God and to honor my profession by serving faithfully. I believe the majority of us here do believe in a power higher than ourselves. If I stood here today, if I sat here today and told you that I have achieved all these successes in my own strength, I would be the greatest liar. I stand and sit before you today as one who has been saved by the grace of God and who has come to understand that God can direct my path daily if I let him. When you honor God, he not only guides your choices that you make, but he also blesses and rewards your efforts. In my line of work, I never walk into the courtroom trusting in my own wisdom or abilities. I ask God to grant me the wisdom, to grant me also the favor amongst my peers, and to walk with me each day. I arrive early in the meeting room and quietly dedicate the court and our work before the Lord. I speak into my day and download success and blessings into it. I bind all negativity and confusion and invite his spirit to dwell amongst us. Finally, I'd like to conclude by acknowledging my family. My husband, John Sebutinde, and my daughters, Sanyu Ndagire and Grace Namtebi, who have unreservedly supported me at home and throughout my career, and without whose support, I would not be where I am today. Once again, I thank the organizing committee of Female Lawyers Network for this wonderful evening and for giving me the honor and opportunity to share my life's lessons with you. I thank you and hope that you have picked one or two ideas from what I've had to share with you, and I wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you.
My Lord, thank you very, very much. It has been extremely insightful. As you can ably see in the chat room, we have a high attendance. I think this has been our highest. We are over 205 participants in. The questions are quite many, but the compliments exceed the questions that are coming in. And for those who have joined us, I don't know, I cannot even do a recap for you, but I'll share the recording immediately after the presentation has been concluded. But my take home from you, my Lord, is the need for us to adopt excellency in each and every aspect, especially in the places where we are currently working. And I've also picked the aspect of the need for us not to be mediocres, to shun any form of mediocrity, to remain on the top of our age in terms of being punctual, being organized. And also the other aspect I've picked is the element of knowing that no job is perfect. Because sometimes when we get jobs, we think, having a challenge here and there, But for me, the take home is that everywhere we go will meet the challenges, but those who will have competitive edge are those that are going to remain firm, bold, courageous, and be able to remain at the different workplaces where they are. I've also picked so much on the team spirit nuggets that you've shared, especially taking off time to know our colleagues. This is very important, understanding their culture, but most importantly, the measure of humility to exceed anything. For me, that is a very good lesson, because here at the tribunal, we work as a very good team. And of course, we've established a good culture. But I've picked the aspect of me seeing things in the other people's perspectives. Now, that is very important. When you shared it, I've picked it because it clearly shows that once we look at issues in their perspective or the point of view of others, then we are able to ably serve them better and enhance the team spirit. You've ably shared very, very good tips on how to develop competitive edge. You know, the need for us not to remain comfortable, the need for us to refresh our skills, strengthening our networks. Of course, this is a call to all of us to continuously log in when we are having our very informative webinars here, and the continuous desire to grow. I've also picked the aspect of developing our brand and knowing how do we want to be perceived at the end of the day? How do I want to be seen? And the need for us to be very, very flexible in our career. And then lastly, as a nugget before we dive into the question, I've picked the aspect of opportunities available in global spaces, but we need to be deliberate and intentional. We need to search for them, but also reskill and retool and be able to have that competition when it comes to accessing them. And you've mentioned the aspect of being bilingual. If we intend to join the global spaces, it means we need to know more languages beyond English and the local languages, but learn the other international languages. So my Lord, in the remaining couple of minutes, allow me to present a few questions that have come in. Most of the other questions, I believe you've tackled them. One of the questions that has come in is what personal skills are critical as we prepare for global spaces in the legal career? And then what is the role of social networks in our legal career? And then the other aspect is tell us how to manage stress, because you know when it comes to hard work and resilience, tenacity, having that courage, it comes along with a stress for us women in law. So my Lord, can you share with us your experience? Thank you, my Lord, for those questions that have come in.
Okay. Some of the questions you've asked, I have sort of, I think, answered in the presentation. For example, what characteristics do we need to possess as professionals in order to progress and to excel? I think I've answered that to a great detail. Let me start with the question of dealing with stress. A lawyer's life is always a stressful one. And when you are a multitasker, you're juggling several roles together, it's even more stressful. When you grow older, you really need to deal with that stress. I think the first tip I would give is that we need to learn to separate our work life from our personal lives. And for me, sometimes what helps me is to maximize when I'm at work. First of all, I'm punctual at work, and I make sure that while I'm at work, I focus on work alone. I don't want to deal with social media surfing. I don't want anything that takes me away, so that at the end of the day, I go home not feeling guilty that I've not done enough. I know that I am tired and I've done enough at work. I don't want to carry homework, work home, so that when I go home, my mind is off of work, and I relax. I watch the news, I watch a movie, I cook, I have a conversation with my family. So that is one thing that one can do. I find that when you carry work home, sometimes you're too tired even to be useful. You are guilty because you bring it back the next day, having not even opened the briefcase. And the cycle just continues, the cycle continues. So you need to separate your work and your personal lives. Also, create time for yourself as an individual to do your favorite things like going to the spa, going to movies with your friends, chatting with your girlfriends, just talking to your family and your friends. Do the things that you like on your what you call me time. Go do your nails together with a friend. Little things like that. If you're the kind of person who loves to go to the gym, do that. When I was younger, I used to go to the gym, ferociously. Now that I'm older, I prefer to go for walks in the evening instead. And I find those very refreshing. But if you can go to the gym, that's also good. But also, I've found that the older you grow, and actually, you don't need to even grow old, but we women, we need to regularly have medical checkups. Okay? You really need medical checkups to look after your health well. Okay, what else did you ask me? You asked me how you asked me, let me quickly go through the questions that you gave me before the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
So one was how to deal with stress. The other one is what have been my greatest fears in my own life and how have I overcome them? I thought, hard about this question. One of my greatest fears genuinely is becoming complacent with the opportunities that God has gifted me with, beginning to take them for granted. Because the minute you do that, your performance begins to slide downwards. Jobs are hard to find. And so this is my advice to everyone listening. If you're fortunate to be in a job, imperfect as it may be, do not grow complacent. Give it your best shot because there's someone who doesn't have that job, And really, it is an opening that you shouldn't take for granted. So that has been one of my greatest fears. And whenever I feel beginning to feel comfortable and complacent, that does scare me. Another maybe thing that scares me is being hit by a debilitating disease that maybe may affect my performance at work. I pray every day that that doesn't happen. But I do more than that. I have regular medical checkups and I care, about my health. I feed properly. I exercise properly. I check my eyes regularly. I check my teeth regularly. And so that way I'm doing the best I can. And then I trust God and leave the rest to him. Another question you asked me, which I think is important, is what opportunities are there internationally for students of law, or at least fresh graduates of law, but also for judges? I would say that there are a number of opportunities available for internships in many of these organizations, internationally. But the best place to look is always at the particular website of an organization. That is where these internships are advertised. Even for the International Court of Justice, we have every year, we have a 9-month internship open to university graduates. We don't take on undergraduates, but we take on people who have graduated with a law degree. Now, of course, your university has to sponsor you. You apply as a graduate of such and such university. The good news is for our court now, the International Court of Justice, is that recently there was a fund launched at the UN to sponsor three interns from developing countries, from universities that otherwise would not afford to sponsor a candidate. So that is good news. And I would encourage our interns, our graduates to look at the court's website. The intake is usually in September of each year, but the applications, the vacancy announcements come, I think, as early as April or in a given year for the following year. So, you need to keep regularly checking these websites. I know there are similar internships at the ICC, at the UN headquarters in New York, and so on and so forth. But of course, even there, I think you should, let me encourage our people at home. The fact that we study in the English language is not an advantage. It is a disadvantage. We need to take on a second language. Just like I said at the beginning, that a first degree is not enough anymore. A single language proficiency is not enough anymore either. And you find that people from countries that are bilingual often, take on these jobs, and we're not competitive at all. So if you can, in your spare time, try and learn French, even if you have to go to Alliance Française in Kampala. Learn a bit of French that will get you that edge. Opportunities for judges internationally. These are also there. They're in plenty. And I know that at the courts, the various international courts, there are new tribunals coming up all the time. But again, you need to watch the internet. And you need to watch the news and see where the opportunities are. For the judges, I've learned that the vacancies are usually announced through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of each country. Usually the missions, the foreign missions, are the ones to receive the information, and then they relay the vacancy announcement through the Chief Justice to approach the various judges. Now, I worked for 13 years in the judiciary, and I never once got to know about a vacancy announcement. How I got to where I am was not because the job was advertised within the judiciary. I got to know outside of the judiciary. So I don't know where the gaps were. But I know that as a judge candidate, you cannot be a candidate in your own right. You have to be nominated by your country or by some group in your country. In the case of the ICJ, there is something they call the national group. It's a group of 4 people that are registered with the Permanent Court of Arbitration here in The Hague. They are the ones that nominate you. It's a complicated procedure. But if one is interested, one can always contact me, and I can tell them how to apply. And often for the judges, this is often accompanied by rigorous campaigning amongst the states, because you don't do an interview as such, but you are elected based on your qualifications, but also how you present yourself to the member states. And the choice is made by countries. The criteria is usually not just your academic proficiency, but also may entail political relations between Uganda and other countries. So it's not easy. If I were to sit and tell you what I went through in my 2 elections, the first time and the renewal, that would take an entire session telling you it was not easy. I'm not saying it's impossible. I like challenges, and I have no regrets that I went through what I went through, and I'm better, placed to advise someone wanting to take on a judicial post internationally. I think what helped me also was I started in a small way in a tribunal. The Special Court for Sierra Leone was a criminal tribunal that exposed me to what is required, the kind of rigors that I'd have to go through. And then I went for this job at the ICJ, which I think is the most horrible election anyone can ever go through. You have to impress the majority of the General Assembly states, that's 197 of them, but you also have to impress the majority of the Security Council, the 15 members. How are you supposed to do that? You have to meet each state through their ambassadors. And you have to spend so much money and resources doing that. You have to be creative in the way you do it. And then, in my second campaign, we had COVID. I couldn't even travel. So I had to do a lot of webinars like this, addressing various regional groupings and telling them why I should be re-elected. And every time it is fresh. You cannot afford to be complacent. It is hard, but not impossible. So if I may very quickly go through, so I've gone through what common mistakes that women lawyers make, I think is another interesting thing that I'll comment, and then I'll probably stop or pause. I think one of the mistakes that women lawyers make is to not believe in themselves, to think that they are not adequate after graduation, to think that they cannot partner with each other to set up a law firm, if the worst comes to the worst, and that they must always be employed by someone else. That is one mistake that we always make. Male colleagues will not hesitate. Even before they graduate from LDC, they are pairing up to set up a firm. But for women lawyers, I don't know what is wrong with us. I know what is wrong with us. We've been socialized not to believe in ourselves. And I think that is wrong. So another error, mistake that we make is not to help each other, and instead to look at each other like a rival, even when we should be helping each other. You see, the rest of the world is doing everything possible to beat us down. So we cannot have our fellow women lawyers doing the same thing. So we should be helping one another. Believe you me, it pays off. For me, since I came here, actually in throughout my career, I've always tried to help not just women, but people that are in a position lower to mine, who are trying to climb up. Here, the people will tell you, I'm not going to sing my own praises, but people here will tell you as well. The minute I came here, I brought about many changes internally that would not have happened if I had not stood up and changed the status quo. But that's for another day. Thank you. I'll hand over back to you.
My Lord, thank you so much. I can't stop listening. I think from that aspect of helping, I can also testify that when I contacted you, you were, I didn't have to plead for you to, to come and share with us. You simply say, Joyce, let me check my diary, simply stay on call. You verified, notified your PA, and then we're good to go and just send your bio. So I can also testify that you're actually helping out there, and most importantly, for sharing with us. Now, in the last, we have about 30 minutes left. Someone had sent in a question on one, how do you handle conflict at a workplace? And the second one is, how do you select good friends in global spaces? Because back home, it may be a little easier because these are your peers previously in different, in old school. When you join a new job, how do you select the good friends so that they are able to stand with you and not break you? Over to you, my Lord.
Okay, conflicts in the workplace. I think whether here or whether nationally or internationally, conflict is conflict. It's something that comes to break the team spirit, basically. And for me, in my experience, one of the things that has led me to conflict with a workmate is either where someone approached me inappropriately with advances. I've had a few of those in the past, or has done something that obviously is discriminatory to me, or that is a form of bullying, or has behaved in a way that doesn't, how shall I say, that doesn't acknowledge my presence when they should, or that tends to interrupt when I'm trying to make a point. This usually happens during deliberations, amongst judges. Everyone has a turn to speak, and you assume that the respect you accord to someone, to others, will be accorded back to you. Now, for me, how have I handled conflict? Where conflict has arisen, one-on-one in a private way, I ask to meet that person. After much prayer, I can tell you. And having calmed down, I never to go, in the heat of the moment. And then I find a way to speak to this person and tell them frankly that their behavior is unacceptable. Or if my behavior has been unacceptable, I will, and maybe I wasn't aware of what I had done to this person, I will be the first in humility to apologize and to repair the relationship. On the other hand, if it's the other person, I put my feelings forward. I tell them that this behavior hurt me. I don't deserve that, or that I am not ready to do what they want me to do. And of course, if the misconduct persists, you can involve third parties, maybe senior to you, but you hope that things would not escalate. Conflict is never easy in the workplace, but what you should strive to do is to ensure that you do your part to repair so that the team spirit continues. How do I select friends in international spaces? I've already said that for me, I keep few friends. The friends actually that I do have, I've had since donkey's years. I can't even remember. So which means I have very few new friends. But I've also learned to put my friendships and my acquaintances in circles. There's the circle, the middle circle, the outer circle. And I treat each person as you present yourself. You see, you can't foist yourself on someone. So it's up to you to gauge when you meet someone, to gauge, get to know this person. They may get to like you, and then you can build a friendship. But if they're only looking at you like a colleague or a workmate, that is also okay. That's also okay. You can't start unloading onto them your personal issues or personal problems. No. It's I don't know. I wouldn't worry very much. Friendships come naturally. They come naturally. It's mutual. It's always mutual acceptance of the other person. That is what I would say, madam. That is what I would say.
Thank you so much, my lord. We basically have about 8 minutes to go. There are quite many questions in the chat room, but someone was asking, how do you perceive a service outside your profession? And then the question is also, how do you face your weaknesses? And the other questions, you already handled them, but someone is asking, how does one ensure that they're acknowledged for the work they've done and credit is not taken by those who didn't do the work? That's a question that came in earlier on. And ladies, the other questions have already been answered in the presentation. Some of you are probably joining late. So, my lord, you can address those last questions.
Okay.
Yes, my lord.
So I'll start with the issue of where someone takes credit for the work that you have done. That is a very, very common and painful experience that people in a senior position often do, especially lazy ones. And surprisingly, in these international organizations, it's a problem that is probably exaggerated as well. It's magnified, let me say. It's a magnified problem where people get appointed to high grades, and when they get there, they do nothing except supervise and make the people below them like donkeys. They do all the donkey work while those superiors take the credit. It's bad. It's a culture within the organization, and I think if you have, there's not much that you can do it on a one-to-one basis, but if you have meetings or if there's a way that you can draw the attention of the people at the top to this problem as an institutional problem that they should be handling, that is what you should be doing. You draw the attention of the superiors that there is this problem. We are not given our due credit for the work that we do. We work so hard, we work extra hours, and then our bosses just put on their signature at the end of the day. These are some of the things that we need to do to make we used to work hard, and we were rarely acknowledged. And many left the service and went abroad or went elsewhere to find greener pastures. Or what they would simply do is put the coat behind the chair, on their jacket behind the chair, and just go and do other things during the day. So basically cheating government and getting paid at the end of the month for it. I decided as a coping mechanism to take my attention away from that aspect of the fact that I was not being acknowledged. And I said, you know what? I am going to gather as many skills as I can, and I'm going to take as many opportunities as I can while I'm a state attorney to learn my skill and learn it, to the best of my ability, hoping that one day these things will come out, to pay. And believe you me, I spent 13 years in the Ministry of Justice. I was in the department of the Legislative Council. By the time I left that department, I had attained a master's degree through scholarship in that same field. And I was one of the best drafters in the world because I had spent 13 years studying hard while my workmates were out doing magendo or whatever it was that they did in those days. I was busy. Every new attorney general that came to the ministry would be told, there's a woman on the third floor who has the latest laws on the back of her hand. I had every volume, every piece of legislation that came out, I had. So I was the point of reference. I was junior, I was a nobody, but every new attorney general or minister that would come to the ministry would be told, oh, you're looking for this? By the way, there is a woman on the third floor called so-and-so. If you want to, call her and ask her whatever you want to know, she'll tell you. So that was my way of coping, that where there was a bad thing that I could not change, I decided to focus on the positive things within the workplace. And when I was in the process of studying for my master's degree in Edinburgh, in the same field of legislative drafting, that is when the opening appeared in the Commonwealth Secretariat. Who did they want? They wanted a female African legislative drafter with over 10 years experience. I had 13. And the fact that I was a woman helped. You see, if I had thrown in the towel early, maybe I would not qualify. But I qualified even before I got my degree, my master's degree. I got the job 9 months before I completed my graduation. But so these things somehow work out. Like I said at the beginning, don't look at the money, don't look at the good, working atmosphere. Look long term. Look further, because it is the length of your experience that may pay you off, the number of years that you've done. in a place. It's the skills that you have acquired. No one can take that away from you. Even if the paycheck doesn't add up, no one can take that away from you. So basically, I think that would be it. Thank you.
My Lord, I just want to take this opportunity on my own behalf and on behalf of all the participants to say thank you very much. We appreciate you so much. One, for finding time to share with us a personal life story, but with full of so many lessons on professionalism, integrity, hard work, resilience. We have learned a lot and we feel so motivated and so inspired. And like I said earlier on, it has been our highest attendance in the Female Lawyers Network with over 210 participants, and they're still logged in for 1 hour and a half. There are so many questions, participants, but I'm sorry, because we are mindful of time, because excellency starts with you keeping time and remaining committed to that duration. I'll probably present them to my Lord, and another time we should probably address them. But thank you so much. We feel so energized. I personally feel I'm ready not to remain any comfortable in any way, but most importantly, to remain excellent and professional. And for the participants, I want to thank you so much. Interestingly, we also have men that have logged in, and despite the fact that session was for women, thank you for finding time. Thank you for the questions that have come in. There are so many messages of appreciation that I believe my Lord is going to look at. And we believe that you'll continue to log in and we benefit from these sessions. I wish you a very, very beautiful weekend. God bless you. And may the favor of the Lord continue to rest upon you, my Lord. Thank you. And we're looking forward to another session next year with you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Be
you
blessed.
too. Thank you
All
too.
right.
And good night to everybody. Thank you for listening in.